Hey guys, I want to talk about how poverty porn in the African context hurts indie developers, and I want to clarify two things in terms of what I mean in, by indie developers and hurt. First of all, in the African context, by indie developers, I mean exactly what you think. That is to say, I mean one or two guys working together, creating products and services that are supposed to cater to millions, if not tens of millions of people. That's usually the goal, right? Number two, I want to talk about hurt. What does hurt mean? By hurt, I mean disadvantage, disenfranchise, or essentially impose an image of negativity on said coders, right? Now, if you look at what was happening in the late 90s in the US and in the West in general, you had these independent coders, like people like Justin Frankel, people like Sean Fanning, all these guys who created these interesting products that shifted the way the world works. Winamp with the MP3 revolution, and Napster with distributed systems. How everything became distributed and how that type of way of doing things disrupted everything that came afterwards, right? Now, a lot of people in the African context are working in a similar way, right? But here's the problem. When you think of Africa, you think about the famine baby, the kid from some country who's starving to death with a fly running across the face, and they don't even bother to remove the fly. That's what you're thinking, right? And that kind of thinking, that kind of poverty porn is happening today. What you have is people who are around my age, early millennials, or people who are younger coming to the African context. And a lot of these people probably are trust fund babies who don't really know what to do with their lives yet, right? So they say, we're going to help the Africans somewhere, right? And they start these organizations either with government money or with Kickstarter, government money as in money from their governments, or or money they raised independently, or through money from corporations that want to help the Africans or whatever, right? The problem with that is that a lot of Africans don't really have a platform to address the world in general, right? So that the message, the image that you get about Africans, and this image includes African coders as well, is of the kid with the famine baby. The general, the crazy general with an AK-47 who chops people's heads off, right? Now imagine you're an African coder, you've built something really cool, you're kind of growing, or you're growing, and you're interested in getting investment, right? You start to talk to investors, they like you, right? But they're going to do the due diligence, right? When they do their due diligence, they're going to Google your country. Where do you come from? Oh my God. They're going to start to get statistics about AIDS or political instability and all of that, right? And a lot of that stuff has been dished out by these organizations that claim to help Africans, but essentially disenfranchise a lot of people who are working independently, right? And here's the kicker, right? You have a lot of these native people, African people, working for these organizations or interacting as intermediaries between the native people and these organizations who are eating off of that too, right? So you have these three groups, right? You have governments that want to help indigenous people, indigenous Africans. You have the trust fund babies from the West or from Asia who don't know what to do with their lives. And you have these native people who aren't exactly the poorest people, in the country. In fact, a lot of them went to private schools and, have that kind of bourgeoisie background, right? And they eat, they use this money that they get from the governments, but it doesn't although it may reach the people that it's supposed to help. It disenfranchises the entire population that's trying to be independent and build things for themselves, including coders, right? So you meet these guys, you want to invest in them, and then you Google their country. Oh my God, these guys might die. You know, you don't think of them as similar to Western coders, as guys who just go to the movies with their girlfriends, or just write code at 3 o'clock in the morning and stay away from things. You think he goes outside and he might die. And that disenfranchises a lot of people because it chases away investment, and there isn't a lot of growth. So what I would like to say to people who watch this video is, a lot of the coders in the African context are people who stay away from things. You don't need to be afraid when you invest with these people. They're not going to die. They're not going to die from some exotic disease. They're not going to get killed for being political dissidents. None of that stuff is going to happen to them, because generally coders stay away from these things. And number two, you need to take what these people from these organizations that purport to help Africans with a grain of salt. A lot of these guys are like, right now it's a Sunday, they're drinking coffee at some coffee shop somewhere, having a good time, and they're gonna drive and find some native kid on the street somewhere who's dirty as hell, and they're gonna take a picture, and they're gonna do hashtag doing God's work, and then you're going to get the image that these people are doing amazing things, but in reality, they're just disenfranchising the rest of us who are trying to build stuff. So don't believe what everyone says. Don't believe the hype. Come and check out Africa for yourself. Come to check out Southern Africa. Go to check out East Africa and West Africa. And a lot of it isn't AK-47s and none of that. A lot of it is just people trying to make their way in the world. And this poverty porn stuff, I'm not saying that there isn't a lot of poverty. Obviously, there is poverty. I mean, this is the poorest place on the planet. But it isn't all that. There are people who are building interesting things. Check them out. Be open to investing, especially millennial people, man. A lot of you guys in the West have some money. A lot of your parents have worked hard and are going to leave you lots of money. Some of your parents have actually left you money. You want to grow that money. So think about investing in African startups and ignore the poverty porn, man. It's not like that at all. If a guy can code on an iMac and, build products for Apple, iOS, iPhone, and that kind of thing, he isn't exactly a guy living in a mud hut somewhere, right? He's a middle-class guy building stuff. He has access to tech. He probably comes from a middle-class background. What's the probability of that guy dying from an AK-47 wound? It's close to zero, right? So take your time, look through their Instagram, look through the... Okay, maybe not Instagram, because Instagram tends to be a bit fake, but look through the Facebook, look through those tweets, try to Google them and find out what they've been building, go to the Medium, and then you're going to see interesting things. And from there, you can decide, is this guy going to die from an AK-47 wound, or is this guy going to create a product and a service that's going to get 100 million users? And from there, we can both make money. But above all else, don't believe the poverty porn, because that poverty porn is exactly what's keeping this place down. I'm not saying there isn't political instability. I'm not saying there isn't corruption. I'm not saying there isn't disease. What I'm saying is coders tend to stay away from all the bad stuff. So that's what I had to say, guys. Think about investing, and thank you for watching this video. Cheers, guys.